Hi everyone. Today I got a special video looking at turning 40. Okay, so basically I'm at the end of the 40th year. Turning 40 itself could be just like any other year, but I think these big decade birthdays are a point of reflection. I did look up quite a few things, and things pop up on YouTube that are relevant to your life, and one of those is like, what do you do when you turn 40? One of the big things that is possible once you've turned 40, or at least allow yourself to do, is that you're at a point in your life where your career is either well established and so forth, and your life is well established. It's a time point where I saw someone recommend now's the time to take the opportunity to plan the rest of your life. And if you have, fortunate to have your parents around, to also plan their lives as well. Now, through quirk of fate, I'd always been planning to be, financially independent by about this age. And then I found out through a different, through a quirk of fate, that actually, I didn't need to do that, that I'm going to have presumably a healthy lifestyle into my middle age and so forth. But one of the things that hopefully, if you've done very well in your career, you may be at the point where work is optional. And maybe this is something that happens for someone who's 50 or 60. But at some point, and maybe happens for other people who are just wealthy from family and stuff like that, like where work is like truly optional. And it's been something that I've been thinking about over time, and exactly what people do with their lives once they don't necessarily have to work for the money. And it's pretty complicated. I mean, I'm very fortunate in my career that software engineering has paid quite well over a long period of time, but this is really just luck. I did not go to school and say what's the most valuable thing I could possibly be doing. When I went to university to start studying computer science and engineering, we just saw the dot-com bubble bust. Nobody really wanted to talk about computers and software for a little while. And I didn't know if I'd even have a good paying job at the end of it. I just thought, like, if I get to get any kind of employment after university, that would be, my criteria for success. And so I was just fortunate enough that, combined with my choice in my career and mobility, where I said I'd always go to wherever my skills were needed most. And so coming out of college or university, as we call Australia, I moved to England, and then moved around a bit here and there. Don't need to go through all of it, but ended up working for one of the FANG companies for the last 10 years. And so things have been pretty good. Ultimately, now looking at work, I'm far more concerned about doing something that I'm proud of more than I am about like looking for where the next dollar is going to come from. If I'm giving up my time, and that's another thing about turning 40 is like I have less time now than I did before. I'll get into that. And that if I'm giving up time, away from my family, and that work is optional, it better be work that's valuable more than just money. And so that's a really important factor. But it's hard for me to transition away, because one of the things that I see in the financially independent, retire early type groups, or basically at the point of where people are sort of not really sure why they're working, and if it's enjoyment, then what exactly that enjoyment is that a lot of people outside of FANG are like, oh, why don't you go part-time or just coast a little bit or something like that. And the reality inside of FANG, like big tech, is that it truly takes 100% of your effort, and it's very difficult to set boundaries. And it's not, say, completely toxic or something like that. It's just, it's extremely demanding. And the reason people have been successful, like if someone's been at a FAANG company for like 5-10 years, the reason they were successful is because they have that natural urge to get stuck into problems and get things solved and get things done. It's very, very difficult, to a fault, to sort of hang back and let things, run a course, not sit back and let things go into disaster, but to put a boundary on your effort is something that it actually is to a fault. Like, it's very difficult for me to look at another engineer encounter a situation and then allow them to make a certain level of mistakes for themselves, because even I could be wrong, right? My instincts and experience don't necessarily override someone else's enthusiasm and willing to execute, right? I mean, you can get a lot achieved just through sheer will of effort and force and stuff like that, and I tend not to like seeing that done. But if that's the way that they arrive at success, then that's something I need to allow them to do without pestering them and hounding them. It's like, doesn't this kind of need to be a little bit better, a little simpler, or something like that? So it is to a fault, and it's very difficult to sort of pump the brakes in a way. So I've been recently made some moves to try and refocus on something that and for people that I'm truly passionate about, and the people are very important to me, that's for sure. I'm not one to lean into management. I do like seeing people do well, and that's probably one of the things that is a very gratifying thing being a manager. I get more enjoyment about execution more than, say, personal growth. If I can take a group of people and everyone comes along with the project, and we deliver something together, that I do feel good about that. But having that relationship as a manager is not something that I want again. So I was a manager for a short period of time at NASDAQ. And, I made a decision a long time ago to say, no, I prefer to stick with a company that could really use, just a good quality, experienced engineer. Yeah, work-wise, trying to refocus on something like that, and trying to get as much enjoyment and satisfaction from the work as possible. And, part of that is I realized that even if I, say, left work, I would still be doing engineering, but outside of a company, I'd have far less resources and far less opportunities to learn and far less opportunities to mentor as well. So there's a lot to be said about, working for a company. If you're just looking at it from like, is this where I get to do some really fun stuff? The real issue is, like with FAANG, you have to be all in terms of your time. So moving on from that, another aspect is you start getting comfortable at understanding what your lifestyle is, and one of those things is like kids. So I've got 2 kids, both beautiful, healthy, a son and a daughter, and we've been thinking for quite a long time about like what would the final number of kids be, and we've really ummed and ahed about a third. Our ultimate decision is like, we're not going to avoid a third, so we're not taking serious family planning steps around that, but at the same time we're not trying for a third. And honestly, without trying, it's not really going to happen. We didn't have the easiest run with respect to fertility. We thankfully didn't need IVF, but we certainly didn't have an easy run. I don't think things will happen by accident, although that's a lot of people's last statements before they end up with a third child. So we'll see. But one of the things that I've been looking at is like, what are people's lifestyles beyond, the level of, financial status that we've got, and what are the things that are people enjoying that are modifications to their life that we don't have, whether it's by frugality or, just simply incapable. And so I really spent a lot of the earlier part of 40, like figuring out what our expenses are going to be, what are lifestyle changes we can implement today. One of the big ones was reading this book, and there's a few on my channel, a couple of videos on my channel, was Die with Zero, and this really put a lot of context into the things that I'm spending my money on, but more importantly, my time on. So one of the things is that by the time you're 40, it would be very easy to say that 40, by the time you're 40, you're past your peak in terms of physicality and health. It's not incontroversial. Yeah, there's people who are able to achieve new peaks and stuff like that. I'd like to be able to do it, but realistically, I'm going to have to put like exponentially more effort now than if I had tried, 10 years ago to achieve a new peak in physicality. And these days I am playing more sport than I did 10, 20 years ago. And that's a little unfortunate, a little regretful. I did play a lot of golf in my mid to late 30s, so there has been some activity there, but in terms of like just pure physical fitness, I don't think golf and shooting really count. That being said, I also recognize that when I did try to maintain my running, I recognized that my knees were probably not going to be able to keep up with how much running I was doing, and I decided that if I've got a certain odometer rating for my knees, and if they were like made by Dodge instead of say Toyota, I may have limited mileage left to use that for something other than sport. I want to use it for sport rather than running. So one of the things that I saw that there's a really good subreddit, Fatfire. So one of the expense areas that a lot of people who are spending way more per year, a lot of the areas were really interesting and helped me understand like, okay, I'm comfortable where I'm at, because one of the big ones was groceries, and I was like, and dining. And I was like, we do a fair bit of dining here. We have date nights once a week, and we do go to higher end restaurants every now and then, like maybe once a month or every second month. And I don't really feel like doing more than that, because that kind of food isn't like the kind of food you want to eat on your daily. And I was kind of like, what's going on here? And one, yeah, there's more expensive cities than Las Vegas, but the other one is alcohol. So that's like that people are spending like literally more than $100,000 a year on just alcohol by either buying alcohol for drinking at home, or when they go out fine dining or dining at all. Alcohol is just like a huge component of some people's expenditure when they're reaching yearly expenditure of like $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year and beyond. 6 figures being spent on alcohol is relatively normal. Thankfully, I've basically given up on alcohol. It's never deeply interested me throughout my life, and I've never felt that good on it. And so I've just said, unless it's a special occasion, socially, I'm not going to do more than 1 drink at those special occasions, or maybe 2 drinks, but that would be it. It would be like for a special occasion. And so not on the regular, and certainly not, even if it is special occasion, it might be a cocktail, but certainly not like, hundreds of dollars per glass of certain wines and stuff like that. Now, I do appreciate a good wine, but I don't think my appreciation level like really warrants going to, tripling the bill at a restaurant, that sort of thing. The other area of interest that really inflated people's expenses, gambling. just straight up gambling. Like there's people in there with multi six-figure gambling losses, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. That was relatively common. I mean, some might frame it as entertainment, like in terms of categorization, but they're not spending that much going to shows and stuff like that. This is really, gambling. I have no interest. I do the math. It doesn't work out. I like seeing the slow progression. The maximum amount of gambling I have is just the speculation that happens within an investment portfolio and having a certain amount of crypto in there. That's the gambling. Where at least it's not a zero-sum game. Where it's rising tide lifts all boats. That's the beauty of the stock market. There isn't someone that has to lose for someone to win on the stock market. So with gambling and alcohol out, the last section, and it is a topic for turning 40, and that is another big area of spending for people with more money than I have, or at least more expenditure than I do, and that is cars. So whether it's luxury cars or vintage cars or something like that, a lot of people spend a lot of money on cars. And I do have a dream car, but I think I've finally sort of like put that to bed. I was in a position where like through 2021, I was thinking like trying to find, for like a couple of years actually, trying to find the right purchase for like a 95 Toyota Supra Mark IV. And it just, nothing landed. And at this point, I've just basically given up. I've been reading about them a little bit, and while Toyotas have been extremely bulletproof, I've been reading about the transmissions on these things are starting to finally give out, and there aren't good replacements for it. So it's getting exponentially more difficult to maintain that car. And it's just not something that I really care about that much anymore. So with that said, with those like alcohol, gambling, cars, the last one was really interesting. There's one category that people are spending money on, well, maybe two, that I realized like, no, I want that. There were quite a few people who are spending more money on food and meals, and quite a few people had like personal chefs. And I thought, actually, that would be fantastic. I could totally see myself enjoying better food. But looking at this in detail, what it usually entailed is someone coming on, one day a week and then meal prepping for, a number of hours, and then all of the meals go in the freezer and then get reheated throughout the week. And I don't know, I asked my wife, I'm very particular about food being fresh and at the right temperature, and the idea of just doing microwaved meals for an entire, that's the new standards. Like that seems like a huge downgrade from where I am. And so I said, well, I really enjoy food, and I actually also enjoy cooking. I'd rather have the time to do this stuff myself. And so I've been focusing on that. So you can see here like a professional cooking book here, and I've got a few basic resources, and I've been trying my best to learn new recipes and new techniques. And I think I sort of nailed, French eggs, whether it's scrambled or an omelette, that sort of thing. So just being able to cook better meals is something that I've been focusing on, and that doesn't require a whole lot more money, but it does take a little bit more time. So that's important. So that was one modification. The other one is the reality, again, that physicality and fitness is not going to be something that, we've got an infinite amount of time of. Being at 40, it's quite possible that, hey, 5 years ago, got arthritis or something like that, right? I know people have faced having certain ailments that prevent them from doing everything they could possibly want already at similar age to this. So for that, I really feel for them, but I also realize that I need to pay attention to the things that I have available to me now. And so we've been doing trips, doing a lot more hiking, doing that while I'm physically capable of. And not that there's anything imminent anymore, but that's the focus, is that right now, while I can still put my daughter on my back, we can do the most extreme level of hikes. And I don't mean they're extreme, but I mean we can push our physical limits right now this year, because by the time she turns 3, she can no longer fit on my back or do strenuous hikes. So this is the year to really go and see some stuff. And we've gone to Zion, we've done a lot of hiking in national parks on our trip to Texas for the eclipse, as well as we're doing some more camping throughout the year. So these are things that we can do while we're all in the physical condition we are. One of the tough ones on this is, like, you maybe know that I'm really into home theater and that sort of thing, collecting Blu-rays, and I've really enjoyed that in the last year. But I've also realized that while I am enjoying rewatching some of my favorite movies and so forth, with a collection that's now I think about 450 movies, and I'm trying to work through them, that I really need to pump the brakes on working through that list, because there isn't a physical standard that you need to be able to enjoy home theater or video games. And that, I mean, it sounds tough, but the reality is I need to not focus on that and focus on the things that actually I can still do now that I won't be able to do forever. So I've been doing a little bit more golf as well in addition, and I'm trying to focus on getting into physical condition just a little bit more. And this is a pretty common theme with people who've turned middle-aged and potentially have a little bit of finances as well. Like, a lot of their focus starts turning towards health, because another good thing about Dive Zero is, like, really money is very useless to you if you don't have health. And so really, while it's all well and good to try and grow your nest egg, what's more important is actually having good health for as long as you possibly can, so that you can actually use that nest egg to improve your quality of life. Because as soon as I've got, like, say, a cold or a flu, it doesn't matter how much money I've got. Like, it's the simplest ailment is immediately enough to eliminate enjoyment in, like, oh, I got a nice watch. It's like, no, I just need to get my head so it doesn't feel like it's going to explode. Figuring out, like, where your station in life is, what are the expenses that you're going to do, you'll have, like, a really good idea as to what the rest of your life, sort of holds. And there's certain bucket list items that I'm putting on there. Getting okay at cooking, hiking, camping, and certain things that I have to put on the back burner, like the home theater. I need to leave that, once I'm less capable, as well as the Supra. Like, just give up on that. Like, I don't need that in my life. And so the last thing was really about also planning for your elders. And so 40 is a good time to start thinking about, like, how exactly are your parents going to manage their golden years, if you're fortunate enough to have living parents. And because that could significantly impact your lifestyle, depending on how you want to plan that, depending on their financial situation. It's the time to make serious talks about, what it is that they're planning to do, and does it involve you and your family. And I gotta say, boomers are not easy to work with. What can I say? Like, I don't know what it is. It's like they have a level of maturity that seems a little lower than other generations, including the ones younger than them. Like, I'll take a Gen Xer over a boomer any day. A Gen Xer is far more realistic with what they want to do with their life than a boomer. I don't know what to say. It's a good time to address the topic, but in my case, I've not been able to steer towards what seems like a realistic solution, but ultimately it's their life. You know, like I tell them that, like, look, real planning has to happen now, because there's no point in planning once things are already going rapidly downhill. Because when things go downhill, they go down fast, and you don't have this extra time to do this, you know, extra planning and stuff like that. But it is what it is. Okay, I realize that sounds all pretty dour, but all I can say is, like, turning 40 is a great time to organize and plan everything for the rest of your life and figure out what really matters to you and prioritize. And one of those things is absolutely health as wealth. So until next time, see you around.